Welcome back to the Book Nook, where we explore the most impactful and really just transformative books in personal growth.
Yeah, the ones that actually, shift how you see the world.
Exactly. And today, we are exploring a true classic, a book that honestly challenges almost everything popular culture has taught you about, feeling good about yourself.
Oh, absolutely. It completely flips the script.
Right. I mean, just imagine this. Imagine landing, like, the biggest promotion of your life.
The one you've been grinding for.
Yes. You've worked for a decade to get to this exact moment, and the money is more than you ever thought possible, the prestige is unmatched, and your peers are throwing you a party.
Sounds amazing, right?
It does.
Yeah.
But your immediate visceral reaction isn't joy. It's a suffocating, terrifying panic.
I hear dread.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you go to the party, you drink way too much, you aggressively insult the CEO who just promoted you, and by Monday morning, the offer is rescinded.
Which is just wild to think about.
You've completely destroyed the one thing you wanted most. And the question is why? Why does success trigger panic in so many of us?
Why do we build the house just to burn it down?
Exactly. Why do we burn down our own houses just when they're finally built?
Well, today on this deep dive, we are answering that exact question.
We really are. We are deconstructing Nathaniel Branden's masterwork, The Six Pillars of Self-Esteem.
Such an intense book.
It really is. I mean, Branden began his clinical studies into human self-worth back in, the 1950s?
Yeah, the late 50s, I think.
Right. And this text really represents the culmination of a literal lifetime of philosophical inquiry and, boots-on-the-ground psychotherapy.
Yeah, it's not just theory.
Not at all. It is a dense, unapologetic dismantling of the modern self-esteem movement.
Because honestly, the modern approach to self-esteem always feels like a sugar rush to me.
Oh, that's a great way to put it, a sugar rush.
Right. It's like this constant, unearned praise. It's handing out participation trophies to everyone just for showing up. Or, looking in the mirror and reciting positive affirmations that you don't actually believe.
Yes. Hoping that if you just say, I am a winner enough times, your brain will somehow, be tripped into ignoring reality.
Which it won't.
No. It gives you a quick, empty fix, a temporary high, and then you crash, feeling emptier than before.
Because there's no substance there.
Exactly. But Branden's approach is the exact opposite. If pop psychology is a sugar rush, Branden is offering, nutritional complex carbohydrates.
I love that analogy. It takes serious time to break down.
It does. It requires intense internal effort to digest, but it provides this deep, enduring psychological sustenance.
Which is what we actually need.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive is to deconstruct what self-esteem actually is, because it's not what we've been sold.
Not even close.
We're going to explore why it's a fundamental human need, how poor self-esteem drives self-sabotage, and most importantly, the 6 daily actionable practices you can use to build it from the inside out.
So, to start, we really have to strip away the misconceptions and define exactly what it is.
Right. What are we actually talking about when we say self-esteem?
Well, Branden breaks true self-esteem down into 2 interrelated components. And he says if you are missing either one, the whole structure collapses.
Okay, so what's the first one?
The first component is self-efficacy.
Self-efficacy.
Right. This is your fundamental confidence in your ability to think, to learn, and to cope with life's basic challenges.
So it's not about knowing everything.
No, not at all. It's a foundational self-trust.
Let's make that concrete for everyone listening.
Yeah.
Because, self-efficacy isn't the belief that you know how to do everything. It's not looking at a broken car engine and saying, I am confident I can fix this if you've never been a mechanic.
Exactly. That would just be delusion.
Right. It's more like the I can handle what life throws at me muscle.
Yes. It's the belief that if you need to learn how to fix the engine to survive, your mind is capable of acquiring that knowledge.
You trust your own brain.
You trust your mind to perceive reality accurately. That's self-efficacy.
Okay, and the second component?
The second component is self-respect.
Okay.
And this is the deep-seated conviction that you are worthy of success, of love, of happiness.
That you deserve good things.
Exactly. It is the internal baseline that joy and fulfillment are your natural birthright. It means you don't view yourself as a secondary citizen in the universe.
Wow. A secondary citizen in the universe. That's powerful.
It really is. So healthy self-esteem is the union of those 2 things. Experiencing yourself as competent to cope with life and experiencing yourself as worthy of happiness.
Competent to cope and worthy of happiness. I mean, that sounds beautiful in theory, but Brandon doesn't just present this as some luxury upgrade for your personality, right?
No, no, he doesn't say, here is a nice-to-have feature for your brain.
Right. He argues that self-esteem is a fundamental human need. And the analogy he uses in the text really caught me off guard.
Like a calcium one.
Yes, he compares it to a calcium deficiency.
It is such a profound shift in how we view psychological health.
Break that down for us because it's so interesting.
Well, think about our basic survival needs, like oxygen or water. If you are deprived of oxygen, the results are immediate.
Right, you die in minutes.
Exactly. But self-esteem is not like oxygen. It operates more like calcium.
Okay.
If you live your entire life in a region where the soil is entirely depleted of calcium, you don't instantly drop dead.
Right.
You might even live a relatively long life, but your growth is fundamentally stunted.
Your bones become brittle.
Yes. You become debilitated and prey to a host of diseases because your skeletal structure literally cannot support the weight of your own body.
So you are fundamentally impaired in your ability to function.
Exactly.
So lacking self-esteem might not kill you instantly, but it severely impairs your ability to function. You might survive, but you will stumble through your career, your relationships, and your inner life with this brittle psychological skeleton.
That is the perfect way to phrase it, a brittle psychological skeleton.
And every minor criticism will feel like a fatal blow because there's no structural integrity to absorb the impact.
Right. He actually calls it the immune system of consciousness.
The immune system of consciousness. I love that.
It's a vital metaphor because it manages expectations.
How so?
Well, having a robust physical immune system doesn't mean you will never catch a cold, right?
Right, you still get sick sometimes.
Exactly. Or that you'll never face a severe illness. It just means you have the internal mechanisms to fight off the infection and recover.
So having high self-esteem doesn't mean you will never suffer from anxiety or face depression or experience massive failures.
Exactly. And I think that's where the whole toxic positivity movement gets it so wrong.
Oh, completely. We're sold this idea that if we just love ourselves enough, we'll float through life on a cloud of perpetual bliss.
Right, which is just impossible.
But Brandon's saying, no, you are going to get knocked down. The immune system of consciousness just provides resilience. It gives you the capacity to rebound faster.
When people with genuine self-esteem are leveled by a tragedy, they are quicker to pick themselves up again. Their baseline of resilience is just higher.
But, this raises a massive evolutionary question for me.
Okay, what's that?
Why do we even have this need? Like, you don't see a squirrel having an existential crisis about its worthiness to gather nuts.
Right.
The squirrel just gathers the nuts.
Yeah.
So why are humans saddled with this relentless need to evaluate our own worth?
Well, it comes down to how we survive. Because the squirrel is entirely driven by hardwired instinct.
Okay.
The squirrel's survival mechanism is automatic, but human beings have an entirely different survival mechanism.
Our minds.
Right. The volitional use of our consciousness. We possess a conceptual faculty. Our minds don't automatically pump knowledge the way our hearts pump blood.
We have to choose to think.
Exactly. We have to choose to focus our awareness, to interpret reality, to project into the future.
We have to weigh moral consequences.
Yes. We can actively seek awareness, or we can actively choose to evade it.
Like, we can choose to face a difficult conversation, or we can choose to numb out with a bottle of wine.
Precisely. We have free will.
And because the right use of our consciousness is not guaranteed, because we can literally choose to make decisions that destroy our own lives, we are forced to constantly evaluate our own choices.
We are constantly observing ourselves making choices.
Right. Which means we cannot escape self-evaluation. We need to know that the tool we use for survival, our mind, is reliable.
Because if you don't trust your mind, you are effectively a prey animal in a terrifying world.
Paralyzed by your own perceived incompetence.
Exactly. And this internal evaluation is happening constantly, mostly below the level of conscious thought.
So it's always running in the background.
Always. Every time you evade a difficult truth, your subconscious registers it. Every time you stand up for what you believe in, your subconscious registers that too.
You're building a reputation with yourself.
Yes, that is exactly what self-esteem is.
Okay, but let's address the elephant in the room here.
Let's do it.
Because whenever we talk about building high self-esteem, someone immediately brings up a specific archetype.
The arrogant guy.
Exactly. We all know the guy at the office who never stops talking about how incredible he is.
Oh, yeah.
He name drops, he takes credit for everyone else's work, he demands the center of attention, and he actively belittles people to make himself look taller.
We've all worked with him.
Right. And The immediate societal assumption is, oh, that guy has way too much self-esteem. So is it possible to overdose on this? Can you have too much?
Branden tackles this head on, and his answer is a definitive, uncompromising no.
Okay,
You cannot have too much self-esteem any more than you can have too much physical health.
that makes sense.
Right. You wouldn't say someone has too powerful of an immune system.
No, you just say they're really healthy.
Exactly. So the behavior you are describing, the arrogance, the relentless boasting, the driving, insatiable need to prove superiority over others, these are not symptoms of a self-esteem surplus.
They're symptoms of a deficit.
Yes, they are glaring, desperate symptoms of low self-esteem.
So the bragging is just a defense mechanism.
Completely.
It's like a localized anesthetic for a deep psychological wound.
Exactly. It is a counterfeit currency. True self-esteem is neither comparative nor competitive.
That is such an important distinction.
It really is. A person with genuinely high self-esteem is not driven to make themselves superior to others because their sense of worth isn't derived from a ranking system.
They don't need to put you down to feel up.
Right. And Branden uses this deeply evocative image in the text to illustrate this.
Oh, the dog in the yard.
Yes.
Yeah.
He describes watching his dog playing in the backyard.
It's such a great visual.
It is. The dog is just sprinting across the grass, sniffing the flowers, leaping into the air, chasing a butterfly.
Just radiating this immense, unadulterated joy in simply being alive.
Exactly. And the crucial part of that image is what the dog is not doing.
Right. The dog isn't pausing to look over the fence to see if the neighbor's dog is watching.
No.
The dog isn't thinking, I am experiencing 20% more joy than the golden retriever next door, therefore I am a superior animal.
Exactly. The dog is just delighting in its own existence.
That quiet joy of being yourself, without the neurotic need to measure your value against a comparative standard, that is the face of true self-esteem.
When you possess it, you are at peace with yourself. You don't need to suck the oxygen out of the room because you are breathing perfectly well on your own.
That is just wow. Okay, so if true self-esteem is this internal, non-comparative state of competence and worth, what happens when we try to fake it?
Or when we just refuse to do the internal work.
Right, because nature abhors a vacuum. If we have a desperate biological need for self-esteem, like calcium, but we don't build it authentically, we're going to try to manufacture it externally.
And this is what Branden categorizes as pseudo-self-esteem.
Pseudo-self-esteem.
Right, because the need is so urgent, if we lack the genuine article, we will desperately seek out a substitute.
We try to purchase self-worth through external metrics.
Yes. We seek it through social popularity, through accumulating massive material wealth, through a string of sexual conquests.
Or through relentless professional achievement.
Exactly.
Or even philanthropy. This was a fascinating paradox in the book for me.
Yeah.
How can doing good works be a symptom of pseudo-self-esteem?
Well, it all comes down to motivation.
Okay.
Philanthropy is wonderful if it flows from a genuine state of abundance and a desire to help.
Right.
But if the subconscious motivation is, I secretly believe I am a fundamentally bad, worthless person, so I must donate millions of dollars and run charities to purchase a moral offset, then it becomes a counterfeit.
The tragedy of pseudo-self-esteem is looking for self-worth everywhere except within.
Exactly. You are trying to fill an internal void with external spackle.
And it never holds.
Never.
Because the acclaim of 1 million followers doesn't create self-esteem. A massive mansion doesn't create it. Getting married to a beautiful partner doesn't create it.
You can win the highest award in your industry, stand on the stage holding the trophy, and still wake up the next morning with a sickening, hollow sense of fraudulence.
What we commonly call imposter syndrome.
Right. You possess all the external markers of success, but your internal thermostat is still permanently set to worthless.
And this disconnect leads to one of Branden's most terrifying clinical observations.
That self-concept acts as destiny.
Yes. It operates as an invisible, self-fulfilling prophecy.
If you lack profound respect for who you are, you will ultimately operate your life on fear, not joy.
You will view success not as a natural state, but as a precarious accident that is constantly on the verge of being exposed and taken away.
Which brings us back to the scenario you opened the show with.
The promotion.
Right, the phenomenon of success anxiety or happiness anxiety.
Have you ever noticed how some people will have an incredible, loving, connected weekend with their partner, and then by Sunday night, they inexplicably pick a massive destructive fight over something completely trivial?
Yes, it happens all the time.
Branden explains that when people achieve a level of success, or experience a depth of love that blatantly contradicts their internal self-concept, they experience severe anxiety.
It's a literal dread.
Life is going too well, and it conflicts with their deepest view of what is appropriate for them.
They feel an unbearable disorientation. They are in uncharted, terrifying psychological territory.
And Branden shares several clinical vignettes to map this out, right?
Yeah, and the story of the architect is a prime example.
Oh, that story was heartbreaking. Let's unpack that.
So this was a man who had struggled for years. He had battled alcoholism, but he had finally achieved 3 years of total sobriety.
That's a huge accomplishment.
It is, and his career was steadily rebuilding. And then he is on the verge of landing the biggest architectural commission of his life.
A project that would catapult him into a level of fame and wealth he had never experienced.
Right. And as the deal gets closer, his anxiety doesn't decrease.
That skyrockets.
Yes. He is sitting there on the precipice of everything he claimed he wanted, and the imposter syndrome becomes deafening. His self-concept is screaming, "You don't deserve this. You can't handle this. You are a fraud."
So he tells himself a lie.
He rationalizes.
Exactly. He rationalizes that because he's done so well, it's completely safe to have just one drink to celebrate the impending deal.
And we all know how that rationalization ends for an alcoholic.
He doesn't have one drink.
No, he gets completely obliterated.
He meets with the clients, giving him the assignment while he is heavily intoxicated, behaves aggressively and inappropriately, insults them.
And completely torpedoes the deal.
His business partner is so enraged that he quits on the spot.
The architect's life is in ruins.
And this is the chilling part of Branden's analysis. How did the architect feel afterward?
Well, obviously, consciously, he was devastated. He was full of remorse.
But subconsciously.
Subconsciously, Branden notes that the overriding emotion hidden beneath the shame was relief.
Really? Yes. He was back in safe territory. He was back to being the struggling, flawed guy trying to get his life together.
That is an identity his low self-esteem could comfortably accommodate.
His internal thermostat could not handle the heat of massive success, so he unconsciously reached for the ice water of self-sabotage to bring his reality back down to his baseline.
It's terrifying how powerful that mechanism is, and it's equally devastating in romance.
Oh, absolutely.
Branden refers to it as the Groucho Marx paradox.
The old joke.
Right. I would never join a club that would have someone like me for a member.
People with low self-esteem operate their intimate lives on this exact frequency.
Their subconscious logic dictates. If you love me, you obviously have terrible judgment, and therefore you can't be good enough for me.
Which is just so twisted.
It is. Only someone who actively rejects me or treats me poorly is an acceptable object of my devotion, because their rejection validates my internal belief that I am unlovable.
It is utterly heartbreaking. I mean, he outlines a case of a man who spent his life chasing emotionally unavailable women.
Right.
Finally, he meets a woman who is grounded, healthy, and genuinely adores him.
And they get married.
Yes, they get married. But because he doesn't feel lovable, her unconditional love deeply confuses him.
It doesn't make sense to his internal map.
Exactly. He constantly demands reassurance, but no amount of affection is ever enough to fill the void.
And finally, when she spends years completely convincing him of her devotion, his mind flips the script.
He starts to wonder if he set his standards too low.
Right. If she loves a worthless guy like me, she must be flawed.
So he begins demeaning her, pushing her away, and eventually leaves the marriage, only to start the chaotic, painful dance all over again with someone who will treat him like garbage.
They choose the familiar misery of being right about their doomed fate over the terrifying, unfamiliar prospect of actually being happy.
It's tragic. So how on earth do you break a cycle that is that deeply entrenched?
It's not easy.
If your own mind is orchestrating your downfall, how do you fight back?
Well, it requires a very specific, agonizing kind of courage. Branden states that you must develop the capacity to tolerate happiness without self-sabotage.
Tolerate happiness. I mean, that sounds like a complete oxymoron.
It really does.
We tolerate pain.
Right.
You tolerate long lines at the DMV. We don't tolerate joy.
But as Branden points out, to permanently fix that internal thermostat, we can't just white-knuckle our way through the anxiety forever.
Right. We have to actually fix the foundation.
We have to engage in the active practices that generate the self-esteem we are missing.
And this is where we move from philosophy to action. Branden provides the core operating system, the 6 pillars.
Let's dig into the foundation.
Yeah, let's look at the first 2 pillars, living consciously and self-acceptance.
Pillar 1 is living consciously. This is the absolute bedrock.
What does that mean, practically?
It is the active daily choice to respect reality. It means ruthlessly distinguishing facts from your emotions about the facts.
Okay.
It requires seeking an acute awareness of both the external world, the state of your finances, your career, your relationships, and your internal world. Your hidden motives, your actual feelings, your defense mechanisms.
It's a refusal to live life as a sleepwalker.
Exactly.
Like, if you are terrified that you're going bankrupt, living consciously means opening the bank statements anyway.
You have to open the mail.
Right. Fear is not treated as a signal to close your eyes and hide under the covers. It is treated as a glaring alarm bell demanding you open your eyes wider.
Precisely. You cannot navigate a minefield with a blindfold on.
That's a great way to put it.
And that leads right into pillar 2, which is self-acceptance. And Branden defines this very carefully.
Okay, how so?
He says it is the refusal to be in an adversarial relationship with yourself. He describes it as a pre-rational, pre-moral act of self-affirmation.
Let's pause and unpack that terminology. Pre-rational, pre-moral. What does that actually mean for the listener standing in their kitchen right now?
It means that before you rationalize why you have a certain flaw, and before you judge morally whether that flaw is good or bad, you simply accept that the flaw exists.
You just acknowledge reality.
Yes, you don't have to like everything about yourself, you don't have to admire your flaws, but you must accept them as your current factual reality.
You don't deny, you don't evade, you don't minimize.
Exactly.
He illustrates this with an exercise he forces his clinical patients to do, and honestly, reading it made my skin crawl.
The mirror exercise.
Yes. It sounds like pure agony, but apparently it is incredibly effective.
It is a brutal, unyielding confrontation with reality.
Explain how it works.
Well, Branden asks his clients to stand completely naked in front of a full-length mirror for 2 minutes every morning and every night.
Oh, man.
They must look closely at their bodies, at their face, at the physical reality of their existence. And they must repeatedly say out loud, whatever my defects or imperfections, I accept myself unreservedly and completely.
And human nature screams against this.
Oh, completely.
We want to look away, we want to suck in our stomachs or hyper-focus on our wrinkles or turn off the harsh bathroom lighting.
We want to critique and reject the image.
But Branden notes that as clients force themselves to persist through the discomfort day after day, something shifts.
The tension breaks?
Yes. They begin to relax into their own skin. They report feeling more real, more physically present in the world.
And the profound paradox here is that once they truly, deeply accept their current physical reality, if there are things they actually can and want to change, like improving their fitness or diet, they suddenly have the authentic motivation to do it.
That is the core mechanism of change.
We are never, ever motivated to change things whose reality we deny.
Right. If you refuse to accept that you are overweight, you will never go to the gym.
If you refuse to accept that your marriage is failing, you will never go to counseling.
It's exactly like a financial audit.
How so?
Well, imagine you are drowning in credit card debt. You cannot fix your crippling debt if your strategy is to shove the envelopes into a drawer unopened.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Right. You might feel a temporary, localized relief by not looking at the numbers, but the interest is still compounding.
The debt is still growing.
Exactly. Acknowledging the exact painful size of the deficit is the absolute, non-negotiable first step to building wealth.
That's a perfect parallel. Living consciously and self-acceptance are the psychological audit.
Acceptance does not mean resignation. It does not mean saying, I am deeply flawed and I am permanently doomed to stay this way.
It means looking at the ledger and saying, this is the absolute reality of my starting point.
Acceptance is the prerequisite for transformation.
It is. And Branden tells a brilliant story about an angry clergyman that perfectly maps the layers of denial we build.
Oh, this was my favorite vignette in the entire book. It just shows how convoluted our brains get to protect our self-concept.
So this clergyman comes to Branden for therapy, and the man is seething with repressed anger. It literally radiates off him.
But
because he is a clergyman, his religious and moral self-concept dictates that anger is a sin. It's a failure of grace.
therefore, he finds it completely unacceptable to feel anger.
Right. He has massive, paralyzing difficulty owning or experiencing the emotion. He denies it exists.
So Branden, trying to induce this self-acceptance, asks him, are you willing to accept the fact of your refusal to accept the feeling?
And the clergyman is totally disoriented by the question.
He physically bristles and thunders back, I refuse to accept my anger. And I absolutely refuse to accept my refusal.
He's doubling down on the denial.
He is denying his own denial.
And Branden, completely calm, counters with, will you accept your refusal to accept your refusal? We've got to begin somewhere. Let's begin there.
Accept your refusal to accept your refusal. I mean, it is therapeutic genius.
It really is.
It forces the light of consciousness into the room, no matter how many labyrinthian layers deep the denial goes.
It corners the mind into accepting reality.
Okay, so you've opened your eyes with Pillar 1, and you've accepted the brutal truth of what you see with Pillar 2.
Now you have to actually take ownership of that reality.
Right, you can't just stare at the audit, you have to pay the debt.
Okay.
And that brings us to Pillars 3 and 4, self-responsibility and self-assertiveness.
Pillar 3, self-responsibility, is about taking total, uncompromising control of your existence.
Okay.
It is the cold, hard realization that no one is coming to save you.
No one is coming.
No one is coming to magically fix your traumatic childhood. No one is coming to do your difficult work for you. And no one is coming to grant you self-esteem.
You and you alone are responsible for your life, your choices, and your well-being.
There's this incredible moment in one of his group therapy sessions where a group member jokingly tries to challenge him on this exact point.
What happens?
The guy smiles and says, Nathaniel, it's not true. You came. Meaning, the therapist came to save them.
And Branden immediately shoots back. Correct. But I came to say that no one is coming.
It perfectly encapsulates the limitations of external help. A therapist, a mentor, or a guide can hand you a map.
They can teach you how to read the compass.
But they cannot walk the trail for you. They cannot carry your psychological weight.
I have to push back on this a little bit, though, on behalf of the listener.
Okay, go for it.
Because we live in a society deeply focused on community, on safety nets, on mutual aid. We are a social species. We survived on the savannah because the tribe had our backs. So isn't the doctrine of no one is coming incredibly depressing? Doesn't it sound bleak and deeply isolating?
He can feel that way, yes.
If someone is listening to this who is currently battling severe depression, telling them no one is coming to save you, sounds less like a pillar of strength and more like a recipe for a crisis. It sounds cruel.
I completely understand that friction. It feels counterintuitive to our desire for connection. But Branden isn't saying don't ask for help. He isn't saying never lean on your community. He is talking about the locus of responsibility.
Okay.
It sounds bleak only if you are desperately holding on to the passive fantasy of a magical savior who will do the internal work for you.
Which doesn't exist.
Exactly. If we analyze the text deeply, Branden reframes this as the ultimate empowerment. Think about the alternative.
What is the alternative?
If you are waiting for a rescuer, a perfect partner, a benevolent boss, a sudden lottery win, and no one is coming, you are sentencing yourself to a life of perpetual passive frustration.
You are living as a victim in a cosmic waiting room, watching the clock tick down on your life.
Exactly. It is far crueler to let someone wait for a train that is never going to arrive.
So the realization is the end of the waiting game.
Yes. The moment you internalize that you hold the steering wheel, that is the birth of genuine, unshakable power.
If you are depressed, no one is coming to cure you. You have to be the one to make the appointment.
You have to be the one to take the medication or do the therapy or get out of bed.
If you don't take the action, nothing will change.
Realizing that you are the architect of your own rescue is the key to psychological freedom.
Okay, I see the distinction now. It shifts you from a passenger complaining about the route to the driver navigating the road.
Which leads perfectly into the next step.
Right, because if Pillar 3 is realizing you are the driver, Pillar 4, self-assertiveness, is the willingness to actually step on the gas.
Exactly. Branden defines self-assertiveness as the willingness to honor your wants, needs, and values, and to seek their appropriate expression in reality.
It is the commitment to your fundamental right to exist.
And we must clarify that self-assertiveness is not about being belligerent.
It's not about being aggressive.
Or trampling on the rights of others. It's not about being the loudest person in the room.
What is it then?
It is about authenticity. It is the refusal to fake your convictions in order to win cheap popularity.
It's the courage to be yourself.
To leap into the arena and actively participate in life rather than sitting in the bleachers criticizing the players.
Which brings us to the final two pillars. You're in the driver's seat, your foot is on the gas, but where are you driving? And are you following the rules of the road?
Pillar 5 is living purposefully, and Pillar 6 is personal integrity.
Let's start with 5.
Pillar 5, living purposefully, is the antidote to drifting.
Drifting through life.
Right. It's not just about making daily to-do lists or being a workaholic. It is about setting productive, meaningful goals and organizing your behavior to achieve them.
Passivity is the absolute enemy of self-esteem,
But Branden makes a crucial, nuanced distinction here.
which is,
It is not the external achievements themselves that give you self-worth. If you build $1 million company, the money doesn't give you self-esteem.
it's the process, right?
Yes, it is the internal process of striving, of utilizing your consciousness to master complex challenges, of overcoming obstacles, that builds your sense of competence.
So the root of our self-esteem isn't the trophy on the mantle. It is the internally generated practices, the discipline, the focus, the resilience that made the trophy possible.
Exact.
But what happens when the goals you are relentlessly pursuing aren't actually your goals?
And this is where Pillar 6, personal integrity, comes in as the ultimate reality check.
There's a deeply unsettling story in the book about a highly successful businessman who came to consult with Branden.
Right.
This man had built a medium-sized company from scratch. He was wealthy. He had all the trappings of outward success. His peers envied him.
But internally.
Internally, he was entirely hollowed out. He was deeply depressed and could not feel an ounce of pride in his massive accomplishments.
And through therapy, they uncovered a devastating truth.
Secretly, for his entire life, this man had wanted to be a research scientist.
That was his authentic passion.
Yes, but he abandoned that desire early in life to appease his demanding parents, who pushed him relentlessly into the business world because they viewed it as more prestigious and secure.
He lived someone else's dream.
And that is a profound failure of personal integrity.
Integrity, as Branden defines it, is the integration of your ideals, convictions, and beliefs with your actual behavior.
It is walking the talk.
When you betray your own deepest convictions, even if that betrayal leads to massive financial success, you inflict a grievous wound on your self-esteem.
Your mind acts as an infallible ledger. It registers the hypocrisy.
The businessman's worldly success yielded absolutely no internal pride because he had surrendered his own mind and values to the wishes of others out of a desperate need to belong.
He wasn't living authentically.
His mind knew he was a fraud. Even if his bank account declared him a supreme success, his subconscious knew he had abandoned himself.
That cognitive dissonance is unbearable over a lifetime.
It really is.
That is an incredibly heavy realization for anyone listening who might be in a career they hate just to please their family.
It's tough to face.
But let me ask a mechanical question here.
Go for it.
If someone is listening to this deep dive and they realize, my God, my self-esteem is currently at rock bottom. I evade reality daily. I hate what I see in the mirror, so I have zero self-acceptance. I'm waiting for someone to save me, and I'm living a life that lacks integrity.
Yeah, that's a tough spot.
How do they start the engine? If the pillars require strength to uphold, how do you build them when you feel completely weak and incapable?
Branden provides a mechanism for this, which he calls the principle of reciprocal causation.
Reciprocal causation.
Like, it's a vital concept.
Yeah.
It means that these 6 practices, consciousness, acceptance, responsibility, assertiveness, purpose, and integrity, generate self-esteem, but they are also the results of self-esteem.
It is a continuous dynamic feedback loop.
Exactly. If your self-esteem is currently in the basement, practicing the pillars feels monumental. It feels like trying to lift a boulder.
So what do you do?
Branden uses a brilliant physical exercise analogy here. If you are entirely out of shape, haven't exercised in 10 years, and someone tells you to go for a 5-mile run, it will be agonizing, and you will likely fail and quit.
Right. You do not start by running a marathon.
You start with small, manageable baby steps.
You walk to the end of the driveway and back.
Exactly. You aim for a microscopic 5% improvement.
Just 5%.
If your integrity is low, try improving it by just 5% today. Tell the truth in one minor conversation where you would normally lie to avoid conflict.
And that tiny 5% exertion of integrity builds a fractional amount of self-respect.
And tomorrow, that fractional amount of new self-respect makes a 10% improvement just a little bit easier.
You are not required to be psychologically perfect overnight. You just have to raise your average level of performance over time.
The momentum builds exponentially.
I love the 5% rule. It takes the crushing pressure off.
Yeah.
You don't have to fix your entire life before dinner. You just have to be 5% more conscious today than you were yesterday.
Exactly.
So understanding these 6 pillars theoretically is one thing, But Branden doesn't just leave us stranded with abstract philosophy.
No, he provides actual clinical tools for transformation.
Because let's face it, our internal baggage, our childhood trauma, our neuroses constantly throws wrenches in the gears when we try to implement these pillars.
Let's look at two specific tools he advocates: subpersonalities and sentence completions.
I want to talk about the board of directors operating inside our heads.
Yes, subpersonalities are a fascinating, highly effective component of Branden's therapeutic toolkit.
What's the foundational idea?
The idea is that our psyche is not a single monolithic entity. We all have different selves coexisting within us.
Okay.
We have our rational adult self, but we also have a vulnerable child self, a rebellious teenage self, a nurturing mother self, a stern father self.
These are internalized versions of our past stages of development or powerful figures from our upbringing.
Right. And when we disown these parts, when we pretend the frightened child or the angry teenager doesn't exist, it causes massive inner friction.
Integrating them, bringing them to the table, brings a surge of energy and psychological wholeness.
Exactly.
The best way I can conceptualize this is to imagine that you have a corporate board of directors running the company of your mind.
I like this analogy.
You sit at the head of the table as the rational adult CEO, but you also have the furious, impulsive teenager running the marketing department and the deeply wounded, terrified 6-year-old child handling accounting.
And chaos ensues.
Right. Now, the goal is not to let the angry teenager run the entire company. That would be disastrous.
Obviously.
But if you refuse to let them speak at the board meeting, if you lock them in the basement because you are ashamed of them, they will eventually sabotage the entire company from the dark.
They'll pull the fire alarm?
Yes. You have to invite them to the table, listen to their grievances, and integrate their energy productively.
That is a phenomenal visualization of the internal dynamic. And Branden shares a story that perfectly illustrates what happens when the CEO leaves the room and the teenager takes over.
Oh, this is wild.
He had a couple in marriage counseling, and the kicker is both the husband and the wife were highly trained psychotherapists themselves.
They possessed all the intellectual tools.
Yet they were in his office fighting viciously, totally out of control.
Just going at it.
The wife was demanding he tell Branden a specific detail, using this authoritative, scolding, motherly tone.
And the husband physically snapped back, "Don't tell me what to do."
The wife then slammed her fist into his shoulder, practically throwing a tantrum, shouting, "Don't talk to me that way."
These were two elite, educated adults acting like petulant middle schoolers.
And Branden, observing this chaos, instantly diagnoses the shift in the boardroom.
He realizes immediately that they had both unconsciously slipped completely out of their adult selves.
They were operating entirely from their reactive teenage selves.
So what does he do?
He didn't lecture them. He simply leaned forward and asked, "How old do you feel right now? And is that the age you need to be to actually solve this marital problem?"
It was like throwing cold water on them.
The question instantly snapped the adult CEOs back into the driver's seat.
They looked at each other, totally mortified by how they had just been behaving.
That is the terrifying power of personalities taking over the company when we aren't practicing Pillar 1, living consciously.
And the tragedy of subpersonalities isn't just that we disown the negative, destructive parts, right? It's
Yeah.
not just locking the angry teen in the basement.
No, and this is a profound insight. Everyone in psychology talks about the danger of disowning the shadow, the inner murderer, the dark side.
Right, the bad stuff.
But Branden points out that the real hidden tragedy for many people is disowning their inner hero.
Their inner hero.
Yes. We actively suppress our own brilliance, our daring, our capacity for greatness, our ambition, because stepping into that power feels too risky.
We fear it might upset the status quo, or threaten our partner, or make our friends jealous.
So we lock the hero in the basement alongside the angry teen.
Wow, so how do we safely convene this board of directors? How do we coax the angry teen and the suppressed hero out of the basement so we can actually converse with them?
That brings us to Branden's signature clinical tool, the sentence completion exercise.
Let's explain this because it's so simple but so effective.
Sentence completion is a deceptively simple, incredibly powerful tool for bypassing mental blocks and accessing subconscious knowledge.
How does it work?
The entire mechanism relies on rapid-fire speed. You are given a sentence stem, which is an incomplete sentence, and you have to rapidly, without pausing to think, provide different endings to that sentence over and over again.
You just go as fast as you can.
By forcing yourself to do it quickly, you overwhelm and bypass the conscious censor, the part of your brain that usually edits your thoughts to make them socially acceptable or safe.
Once the sensor's bypassed, you tap directly into raw, unfiltered subconscious wisdom. In the book, he actually includes a comprehensive 31-week sentence completion program for the reader to do at home.
It's intense work.
It uses stems like, if I bring 5% more awareness to my work today, and the instructions are to just rapid-fire finish that sentence 6 to 10 times.
So you sit down with a notebook.
Right, and you're right. If I bring 5% more awareness to my work today, I would notice how terrible my posture is. If I bring 5% more awareness to my work today, I would actually listen to my boss instead of pretending to listen. If I bring 5% more awareness to my work today, I would admit that I am incredibly bored and need a career change.
And doing this daily actually builds the muscularity of the 6 pillars.
Why does it work so well?
It works because it forces you to generate the insights yourself. It is pure experiential learning.
It is not a guru or a therapist lecturing you about your flaws. It is your own mind revealing its hidden truths to you.
It activates your internal wisdom and forces you to confront the reality you've been evading.
Over weeks, the answers deepen. In week 1, the answers might be superficial. By week 10, the answers are cracking open childhood traumas and profound realizations.
It's essentially self-directed therapy.
Okay, we have focused incredibly intensely on the internal landscape for the last while. We've looked at the pillars, the internal audit, the subpersonalities.
But our self-esteem does not exist in a hermetically sealed vacuum.
Right. It has to interact with the chaotic, demanding external world, how we navigate our careers, our society, and most importantly, how we raise our kids.
That's a huge piece of this.
If we want to prevent the next generation from needing 31 weeks of sentence completions just to function, how do we build self-esteem in children?
Because as we established in the intro, chanting, "You are a special winner," into a mirror while handing them a plastic trophy is absolutely not the answer.
Far from it. That approach breeds the exact pseudo-self-esteem we've been warning against.
Branden emphasizes that the absolute bedrock of childhood self-esteem relies on what he calls psychological visibility.
Psychological visibility.
Children desperately need their internal states accurately perceived and reflected back to them by their parents.
Give us an example of that.
Well, if a child expresses intense joy about a bug they found, and the parent dismissively calls them silly or tells them to be quiet, the child feels psychologically invisible.
Or if a child is crying and sad and the parent tells them to stop faking it, or boys don't cry, the parent is denying the child's reality.
The child learns that their internal state is invalid, which destroys their self-trust, their self-efficacy.
You cannot inject a child with self-esteem through empty praise. You foster the environment for it to grow by making them feel seen and understood as autonomous human beings.
Once they trust their own mind, they naturally begin to learn the 6 practices.
There is an agonizing story in the text that highlights the lack of this visibility.
Oh, the 11-year-old boy.
Yes. So Branden is consulting with an 11-year-old boy who is highly gifted. They're having a deep, serious conversation about the unique struggles of being a gifted kid in a standard school system. Right in the middle of this, an assistant principal walks up and asks the boy a question.
The boy politely turns and begins to answer.
Halfway through the boy's sentence, the school psychologist walks over, completely ignores the boy, interrupts, and starts talking to the assistant principal.
And the assistant principal literally turns her back on the boy mid-sentence to chat with her colleague.
And how did the boy react?
He didn't throw a fit. He just looked at Branden, slumped his shoulders, and spread his arms in a gesture of utter resignation, as if to say, "What can you do? Grown-ups still don't get it."
It perfectly, tragically demonstrates how adults routinely treat children with a blatant discourtesy and lack of respect that they would never dare show to another adult in a professional setting.
That interaction rendered the child completely invisible. He was treated as a non-entity.
If a child repeatedly feels invisible to the authority figures in their world, how can they possibly develop a robust, unshakable sense of self-respect?
They can't. They absorb the message that they are fundamentally unimportant.
And this leads to another crucial warning Branden issues regarding authority figures, whether they are parents, teachers, managers, or therapists.
He warns against the arrogance of the therapist ego or the guru ego.
You cannot simply lecture people on the 6 pillars. You must become what you wish to teach.
You have to model the behavior. Branden shares a beautiful parable about an Indian guru to drive this point home.
I love this story. Let's tell it.
A desperate family goes to a wise, revered local guru because their 9-year-old son has developed a terrible, health-ruining addiction to sugar.
They beg the guru to talk sense into the boy, assuming the holy man's words will cure him.
The guru looks at the boy, looks at the parents, and says, "Go away and come back in 2 weeks."
The family is highly confused, but they obey.
2 weeks later, they return. The guru sits down, looks the boy in the eye, and has a stern, powerful conversation with him about the dangers of sugar.
After the session, the father asks the guru, "Your words were wise, but why did you make us wait 2 weeks to hear them?"
And the guru replies, "I needed the 2 weeks because I, too, have had a lifelong weakness for sweets. Until I had confronted and resolved that issue within myself, I was not ready to deal with your son."
I love that story so much. It is the ultimate expression of personal integrity.
You cannot model self-responsibility for your child if you are constantly blaming your boss for your problems.
You cannot model living consciously if you are numbing out on your phone every night at the dinner table.
And modeling these resilient traits is more critical right now than at any other point in human history.
Which brings us to the macroeconomic argument of the book.
Right.
Branden argues that self-esteem is no longer just a nice psychological cushion. It has evolved into a literal economic imperative.
It really has.
Why is a psychological trait suddenly a requirement for the global economy?
Because of the massive structural shift from a manufacturing-based industrial economy to a high-speed information economy.
Okay, unpack that.
In the old industrial model, the command and control hierarchy worked perfectly. A few highly educated people at the top of the pyramid did all the thinking, all the planning, and made all the decisions.
Everyone else on the assembly line just did exactly what they were told, repeatedly, for 40 years.
That mechanical environment did not require high self-esteem or independent thought from the average worker.
In fact, independent thought was discouraged.
Right. But today, mind work is the dominant economic activity.
Even entry-level jobs require complex data analysis, constant cross-departmental communication, rapid adaptation to new software, and managing competitive metrics.
The pace of change is just disorienting. A skill you learn today might be entirely obsolete in 3 years due to AI or market shifts.
Exactly. Organizations can no longer rely on a few geniuses at the top. They require a high level of self-management, personal initiative, and self-reliance from almost every single employee.
They desperately need innovation at every level, and you cannot innovate if your self-efficacy is so low that you are terrified of making a mistake.
You cannot adapt if your self-esteem requires rigid, unchanging rules to feel safe.
Therefore, robust self-esteem has literally become a survival trait in the modern, unscripted workplace.
It highlights the ultimate paradox of modern life, I think.
Yes, so.
We have more freedom and more choices than any previous generation in the history of the world.
We really do.
We can choose our careers from thousands of options. We can choose our religion. We can choose our lifestyle. We can choose who we marry, or if we marry at all.
But this absolute boundless freedom is utterly terrifying if you lack self-esteem.
If you don't trust your own mind to make good choices, being thrown into an unscripted world with limitless options is like being thrown into the deep end of the ocean without knowing how to swim.
That is precisely Branden's sociological point. The greater the number of choices and decisions we are forced to make at a conscious level, the more urgent our need for self-esteem becomes.
Without a strong internal compass, people are overwhelmed by the anxiety of freedom.
And when people cannot tolerate that anxiety, they seek escape.
They surrender their autonomy to authoritarian cults, to rigid political subcultures, to extreme dogmas, or to addictive behaviors, simply to avoid the terrifying responsibility of having to think for themselves.
They trade their freedom for the illusion of safety.
Okay, let's bring this massive exploration all together. Why does the 6 pillars of self-esteem matter so much, and who is it ultimately for?
This text is essential reading for anyone who feels like an imposter despite their glittering external success.
It's for the person who had the degree, the job, and the house, but still waits in terror to be exposed as a fraud.
It's for anyone who finds themselves stuck in a maddening cycle of self-sabotage, constantly choosing the familiar misery of failure over the terrifying, unscripted prospect of actual happiness.
It is, quite literally, a tactical manual for taking back control of your own psychological immune system.
It strips away all the comforting illusions. It reminds us forcefully that self-esteem is not a gift you can receive from the universe, your parents, or a therapist.
It is an achievement. It is generated from within through the daily, relentless practice of consciousness, acceptance, responsibility, assertiveness, purpose, and integrity.
Please subscribe to the Book Nook so you never miss an exploration into the books and ideas that can fundamentally change your life.
And we want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us which book you'd like us to explore next. We read every single one.
To close out today's discussion, we want to leave you with a final challenge to take into your week.
Yes, Branden teaches us that self-esteem is essentially the reputation we acquire with ourselves. Every single time you keep a promise to yourself, your internal reputation improves.
Every time you evade reality or break a commitment to your own well-being, that reputation takes a hit.
So, using the 5% rule we discussed earlier, ask yourself today, what is one small 5% promise you can make to yourself right now and actually keep?